Hello, everybody. Great to see you again. Today I was thinking about some cool things that me and my former missionary companion could do. Having been a missionary for my former religious group back in Taiwan from 1976 to 78, I was thinking, man, of course, I don't quite believe in all of that now as I used to, so I really couldn't represent that particular brand anymore. Nothing against it, but it's just not quite my brand. But I was still thinking about the importance of having some great cause, some big thing that a person can do in life. Not big in the sense that the whole world looks on it and they pat you on the back and they give you recognition. Because, man, when you flip and croak, you're going to die out from under all of that anyway. It's got to be something that is lasting, something that really is in alignment with the will of heaven. And so that's why this idea, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. So I was considering not only the typical, standard, traditional Christian explanations of things, but also how the teachings of the Buddha, the teachings of the Tao Te Ching, the Taoist traditions, and of Ramana Maharshi, and some of the other traditions, they all, where do they come together? That's what I was going to say. Where is the place that they all come together? Because doesn't it make sense that if there's any underlying truth through all of that, and I say underlying, I don't mean as in lies, but I mean as when you distill it down, there's something at the heart, at the core of it, that all of them have tapped into, and all of them try to access and explain from whatever their points of explanation. And so you look at the main explanations of the different groups. The Christians, the early Christians, they used to call them followers of the way. You don't hear that much anymore. But you know that Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. And I don't mean myself, but just the way he meant it. Now, I did a few other videos on how that applies to mystical Christianity, and that it actually is possible to use the frame of the human body to set up the equivalent of an old-fashioned scale or Christian yoke. That the one that sits in devotion, whether they're praying or meditating, they can gather two or more points, one on one side, one on the other, and then simply abide in that straight and narrow place between opposites, between right and left, for example, or the other opposites. So between right and left would be this, and between too much and too little would be that. You see, too much, too little, but there's a sweet spot right in the middle. And you realize I just made the sign of a Christian cross when I did that. So you can set up the yoke, and you can actually, using the frame of the human body, physically abide in this place of the heart, this place called me. And not myself, but the place of devotion, the Holy of Holies, in your heart where you're devoted to God. But because I've explained that so many times in so many videos, we're going to move past that. We're not going to talk about that today. But we're going to consider, like in the Bible, right? If you get a Chinese Bible and you'll read 太初有道，道与神同在，道就是神. And what that means is, in the beginning was the Word, right? But the way they translate word is as what? They say Tao. In the beginning was the Tao, and the Tao was with God, and the Tao was God. You see, they're using the very same exact character that the Taoists use, right? So that's very interesting. And then Buddha had the middle way, of course, the place where you find that place no matter what your external setting or situation, and it is a place that, having found that, you can find it, and then it's a place that provides freedom from suffering, right? That suffering comes from mismatching the world, but that it's possible to find a place that's just right. And that's not meaning that the place itself has any qualities that, oh, finally this place is right, but that to the top of it, to the bottom, to the right, and to the left are all these qualities that morph and change, but you can find a place that's just right. And I'll give you this example as just as a way to know about it. The Buddhists have this way of observing, following the breath, right? And I'm sure every one of you have felt what it's like to have labored breathing, right? Where you breathe, but you just feel there's a pressure. If you breathe this way, there's too much pressure, or if you breathe this way. But let's just suppose you're not exhausted, you're not just gasping for air or anything, but you just breathe in normally. Well, there's a place between too high and too low that's just right, and you can actually observe that place and follow it. It might go like this, it doesn't, I mean, it goes wherever it goes, right? But it literally is a place that if you go above it, you're entering into laboredness. And when you turn toward it, you enter into ease. And then if you go below it, you enter into laboredness, but above it is ease. And then as far as right and left also, but also as, front and back, you know exactly where to put your mind to watch it. That is the place of ease. And what I'm saying is, it's occurred to me, this whole idea of the Buddhist way of doing stuff, I admit it's pretty new. Sure, I've read the Dhammapada for decades, off and on, not in a real dedicated way. That's the writings of the Buddha, right? But it's only recently that I've been really doing that idea of following and observing the breath. And I've learned how to move my mind to a place of ease. I'll give you one example that I explained in the past of how I've learned to do that, and maybe this will help you. Now, it might be a little bit of repeat, but basically when you set up this Christian yoke or a scale, instead of waiting for two or more believers to come together, two or more gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Well, you're going to be sitting in devotion anyway, right? So you're going to be basically in the center, and you will gather not two or more believers, but two or more samplings, two or more points, one on each side. And having gathered those, there is a place between right and left that if you lean this way, you'll feel that you're departing outward in that direction. Or if you lean this way, you're departing outward in that direction. But there's literally a sweet spot that you can hang out in. But you will realize that as the world presents itself to you in ever new ways, as it always does, new sights, sounds, feelings, tastes, and like that, in response to all of that, you'll tend to lean. You'll tend to lean toward things you like and away from things you don't like. And if you take that to an extreme example, you realize that's what it means to get caught up into the world. Because you go for one thing, then you realize that's not what you want. You get buffeted around, you go towards something else. So you get enturbulated in the middle of the world. Without having this Christian yoke or this scale set up, it's not easy to recognize the very instant that you start to depart outward from this sweet spot, this place of devotion, that you hold to with all your heart, might, mind, and strength, that doesn't miss the mark. And anyway, so I'm not, we've already talked so much about that. You can find that in the other videos, but there literally is a way to use the frame of the human body to sit in and experience the place that's not too much one way or too much to the other. In my own personal practice, that's what I've been doing for a long time. I started out by the two, and you could do this whether you're praying or meditating or what. Basically, you're sitting in devotion. You can gather any 2 points. For me, I've found it the easiest in the beginning because I'm sitting, right? The easiest would be to sample the sitting bones where I meet the chair, right? There's a sitting bone on one side, a sitting bone on the other. And between the two, the one who sits is just in the middle. And this is very similar to what a surfer would do, because they'll put a foot on one side of a board, a foot on the other side, and then they'll sink their center of gravity down between the 2 points. And not missing the mark, they keep balance. They don't fall. They don't mismatch the world, and their world is a lot easier. Even if their world is just the arrival of different waves, different combinations of life in the form of an ocean. Or skateboarders, similarly, they put a foot on one side, a foot on the other. But you're not limited to the sitting bones. That's just a good way that I like to do, because it's so easy to sit, and you can just, resting, you can just make the tiniest correction to one side or another to keep in this sweet spot, right? So how, this is what I'm getting to now. How did this practice teach me to move my mind to a place of ease, right? Because if you're wanting to surf this place, to keep in this middle way, this straight and narrow place between right and left, well, you will probably find yourself leaning. And when you're leaning, how do you return to the center? See, you're not supposed to use force to physically force your way to this side, but you use release, such that if I'm too attached to this side, I can release my way to this perfect place. And same with here, I can release to that. So yes, it's a change. You could say it's an action, but it's a non-action, because you're releasing the attachment to one side or the other. And that matches what the Buddha taught about not being attached to the world. Because there's attachment. This is what makes a person lean. That's what I'm trying to say. If they're attached to one thing, or if they want to avoid something, then they'll lean. And so the correction itself, doesn't it make sense that the correction itself should also avoid attaching or aversion? Basically, there's a place between attachment and aversion. Those are also opposites, just like in this example, right and left are opposites. But there's a place between attachment and aversion that is absolutely the sweet spot, because you don't need anything, you don't need to avoid anything, you're contented in that place. But if you can set up a scale like this, you actually learn to sit and abide in this place. And no matter any time, no matter where you are, whether you're sitting or walking or in any kind of setting, you can take the boringest, most stupid set of conditions. Maybe it's a really boring meeting at work or at your church. But you don't have to be sitting there thinking, man, this whole meeting's BS. I need to be out in the parking lot drinking my beer or something. No, man, no matter what the conditions, this is what I'm telling you, even no matter what the political conditions around you, are you sometimes concerned with politics or the state of the world, where this set of facts or this set of circumstances draws you out and it seems very complex and you become troubled by it. Well, man, at the earliest arrival of the changing environment of life, you can first set up this kind of a Christian yoke or a mystical scale, and then you can literally surf and abide and hold to this place between opposites. So to correct your place, if you find yourself leaning because of your response to the presentations of life, you can use release to release back into the sweet spot. But you can also simply move your mind in such a way so as to abide in the place of ease. And I've said this in another video, but when you think of the example of the America's Cup ships, you know, the ones that are racing, they have the big old sails. Sometimes you will see, like photos of them, where the ship is just leaning almost sideways. And if you're looking at that, you're thinking, why in the flippin' heck would that ship want to be sideways like that? But when the ship leans this way, the crew will lean the opposite way. So the ship's this is the ship, and then these are the crew. If the ship leans, the crew goes this way. And then if the ship leans this other way, the crew go this way. But can you see that through all these changes, these apparent changes in this world, all these supposed, big appearing adaptations, there's still a sweet spot. There's still a place that the net change is zero. That's the place of the heart. That's the place which is steady, it's balanced, and like that. So that's an example of physically you can change things around. Even if one side goes way off to the side, you can simply, almost like image stabilization on a camera, the moving of this puts something on this side, which counterbalances it. If you can set up your own life in this way, then you have a way to be steady in the midst of a changing world. But what I'm getting at is you don't want to be wrestling your physical frame around as if this is some external place that can only be obtained through more mistakes, the mistakes of using attachment to one thing or pushing off from another thing. No, you want to use release, but you also can move your mind in a way that matches this example. So here's how you would do it. If you start by feeling both sitting bones, right? You feel where they meet the chair. And I want to tell you, you don't have to use the sitting bones only. You could use maybe K27, or you could use spleen 21, or just any points. In the beginning, you'd probably use symmetrical points, just because it might be easier. I don't know, but you'll also realize that in some of my other videos, I showed this way that you can literally use the segments of the fingers of the hands as if they are prayer beads, and that you can literally hold a point on one side and hold a point on the other side in a symmetrical way, right? And then, so these, in this example, there's that idea of where 2 or 3 are gathered, or where 2 or more are gathered. You can literally set up a correspondence. You have your sitting bones where they meet the chair, but you also have this. It's like a correspondence from the sitting bones up. So you can see that this would be pretty symmetrical, right? But then when you move on to the next place of devotion, the next prayer, this is what I'm trying to say. You can be, because it's symmetrical, you have a really good sense of what it means to be resting in the center. But then, when you move on to the next prayer, you keep one side where it is, and you change the other side to a new location. So what I'm saying is, from one side to the next, there's not symmetry anymore. There's literally asymmetry from one side to the next. But with this change, you still hold to and abide and surf this middle place. And then you move to the next one, still all the while holding to and abiding in this place. So you do this, and literally you have one hand, which is the decades hand in the Catholic tradition. If we're considering the Catholic tradition, for example, you have the 5 decades represented, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then on this hand, the counting hand, you have the hand moving in this kind of a way to all these different prayer positions. And it seems like it's a whole lot of different physical considerations, almost infinite combinations from one side to another. But because you're doing this, but also as you're praying, the whole world around you is moving and changing. You're hearing things that could cause you to lean. You're seeing things that could cause you to lean. You're smelling things. Like if your friend had too many beans to eat for lunch. Your task, your offering, when you sit in devotion, is to find steadiness in the midst of a changing world. And where is this place of steadiness? It's the place of the heart. So this is a way of training that no matter what the external, you learn to hold to this place, this center place between opposites. And so what this does is it makes it so it's not even limited to the physical frame of the body. Because when this is not symmetrical, you can still find the place between opposites and abide in it. Now this is, okay, that was just a little side line. So now how do you use the mind to find the place of ease? So if you start by feeling both sitting bones evenly, right? You can probably feel them pretty evenly, right? Now normally as life presents itself to you, you will find yourself leaning, and you won't even know why, probably. I mean, there are individual item by item considerations. We could say, well, I'm leaning that way because that's a beautiful looking person, or that's a great looking ice cream cone. So you know why you're leaning in those kind of instances, right? Or if you want to avoid something else. But what I'm saying is it's more subtle than that, because all of life in combination, in total, it arrives in this place of devotion in which you're sitting, whether you're praying or meditating. And you don't have to know why you're leaning. You don't even have to know, because when you set up this kind of Christian yoke or scale, the very instant that you start to go out into the world, you'll recognize it, because like if I go this way, I'm feeling this sitting bone more than the other. And because of that, I know exactly when I've departed out into the world, and I know exactly how to return back, and then I know with certainty spot on when I've returned to this place that doesn't miss the mark, that doesn't lean. So you feel both sitting bones evenly, and now put your mind, feeling them evenly, just put your mind on that sitting bone. Do you see that simply moving your mind to that place, you feel that one more, right? And now feeling them both evenly, put your mind on that sitting bone. So you can see that it's not even the physical posture. It's the movement of the mind. What this means is that as you're surfing life with this physical frame of devotion, this prayer frame or devotional frame, this Christian yoke, even if physically you're leaning to this side, you can put your mind on that one, almost as the image stabilization on a camera. So if you lean just the tiniest bit this way, and now feel that one, put your mind on that one. do you see that simply moving the mind, and now lean this way and move your mind to that side, just like those people on the boat that was tipping, just like they would lean off to the side. So this is the example, the teaching example of how to move the mind in such a way that even as the image stabilization on a camera, you can surf and hold to and abide in the place that doesn't miss the mark. That's the place of ease. The knowing, when you're sitting here sampling both sitting bones, but you start to drift off to the side, the knowing that I'm too far this way and I need to go back that way, that matches the teaching of the wisdom of the Buddha. Because there is this middle way that is a place of ease, not as a thing, but simply because to the sides you have the developments, the modifications of life. And if you hold to the place that doesn't miss the mark, it's like a refuge in the midst of a changing world. And what I'm saying is, when you have this scale, the very instant that you start to depart out into one of these places that misses the mark, you will feel that you are departing out of this place of ease into a complex or kind of turbulent, complex situation, but you can move it back and you can still seek and hold to and find this place of refuge. So I do recommend, if that interests you, to really study the teachings of the Buddha. And I know I've only been into it for a short while, but I'll say that I've practiced this leaning, this right and left, and then finding this straight and narrow place between opposites. I mean, how narrow is the place between left and right? And then the whole idea that Jesus said, enter in at the straight gate, if you're going to enter into such a place, you should be able to establish basically a Christian yoke, or be able to take up your own cross and follow me. The word me, I'll keep it simple, but Jesus, when he said it, he meant himself, But most traditions in the world, not even just Christians, but they give God a place in their heart. And if you ask yourself, who's going to give God a place, and who's going to give God a place in my heart? I am. So I'm pointing to this place. And I'm saying, I am. Those are the words that the religionists didn't like when Jesus used it. But really, it's just a place of refuge, a place of devotion, that each person who sits in devotion or in prayer, they surf, they hold to, they abide in this place. They choose this one good thing, instead of going out into the world toiling and spinning, or leaning unto their own understanding. And of course, the world's always changing around you, and with each new change, each unique, ever new combination of the elements of life as they arrive in the place of your devotion, each new arrival from one moment to the next, it's as if it continually asks this question: lovest thou this place of devotion, this place of me, right? Lovest thou me more than these? And so it's like, in this situation, yes, I'm going to hold to this. This proves that I love me more than these. But then a new dialing up of life around you, a new combination of elements, with the new change of scenery, change of environment, you show that you love me more than these, because you can hold to this way, this Tao, this place between. This place of the heart, which is like the proverbial treasure hidden in a field, that a person will sell all they have to obtain this one goodly pearl, this one pearl of great price. And, I think all the different traditions are as valid as they are. So if you came up with different conclusions than I have, or than I am coming up with, I'm not even saying what you have is bad or that it's wrong. It's probably valid as it is. But I'm just saying, in all the Christian writings, they talk about a straight and narrow place. They talk about taking up your own cross and following me. Well, if you know this as the place of me, meaning the place of devotion, which you've given this place of devotion to, your worship of God, well, you can abide in this place. How in the flippin' heck would you abide there? How would you know? What about this idea of a Christian cross or yoke? So what do you guys think that is? It's not what I came up with, but what do you think it is? And just so simply, a person's going to be in whatever belief system they are. I could be praying, right? I could be praying while picking my nose, while drinking a beer, while listening to some flipped out drummer in some religious band, just acting like a possessed, tattooed weirdo. And just because in theory he's the same brand as me, it's like, okay, that's supposed to be my brand, But I'd consider that. That's a lot of noise. It's a lot of movement. It's a lot of hysterics in some instances. When the Holy Spirit moves upon you, I'm not going to limit what that could be, so I'm not criticizing it in that way. I'm just saying that there is this place for this idea of be still and know that I am God. And I'm not pointing at myself either. You point to your own heart when you consider your place of devotion. There's that consideration. And, there's this guy named Ramakrishna that he had a student named Vivekananda, or Narendra. And Narendra was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He went around to these different gurus and stuff, different teachers, and he just right off the bat he'd say, "Have you seen God?" And if the guy said no, he'd just turn and walk right out. You know what I mean? And I kind of admire that. It's a very bold thing. But when he came up to this guy named Ramakrishna, and he asked him that same question, he said, "Have you seen God?" And Ramakrishna, he said something like, "Man, I see God right now just as surely as I'm looking at you." And that just blew that guy's mind. So he became a disciple. I think that's the Narendra story of Vivekananda. But thinking of that, who in this whole world is so bold, so certain, that they'll say, yeah, I have, like it's a no-brainer, like like it's just a given almost. Well, to my way of thinking, who would say that? It could be a con man. It could be somebody that is just making it up, just flipping making it up, So just on its own, I wouldn't accept that necessarily. I'd take it with a grain of salt. But what if somebody like Ramakrishna wasn't just screwing around? What if he wasn't lying and he really was seeing the face of God in that very moment? That's pretty wild. And so there's this path, this Tao that you can find as the world presents itself to you in the place that doesn't miss the mark, in the place between opposites, and you can actually hold to it. I've given you the example of how you can not lean this way and not lean this way, and it's the arrival of ever new elements of life in this place of devotion, in which you continually answer this question: lovest thou me more than these? And I want you to just take one moment and realize that this is a way that you can continually love the place of God, continually love God, anytime, any place in devotion. Because to not be devoted would be to go out into the world, and screw around and not hold to the one good thing. But if you're going to be devoted, I already gave you that example of the person that's just picking their nose and listening to some guy flipping out on the drums. And they're basically still thrown into the world. They're still just being thrown every which way by all these new sounds, all these new sights. Yeah, maybe they're getting some spiritual thrill from it or something. But I want you to realize there's also this place for the idea of be still and know that I am God, which is one of the scriptures, right? There is a real place for that. So you can sit in devotion, you can sit in prayer, and maybe you can reduce some of these distractions. Maybe you can have that flipped out drummer just, maybe send him off on vacation for a while. Maybe if you're sitting around picking your nose too much, well, I'm just saying that even the desire to pick the nose, it's a new presentation of life, right? You were sitting in devotion before the wanting to pick your nose, before that sensation arose. So you're sitting balanced. And then as that sensation to pick your nose arises, there's still a place that still holds to this place of balance. It is true, yes, you could pick or blow your nose while surfing, while holding to this place. You just put your center to this. It sounds dumb, but it really is the way that I found you can practice. You can put your center to the center of that booger, that wanting to pick it. And then you pick it in such a way that the finger doesn't miss the mark to this side or to this side, to this side or to this side. I'm just saying this middle way, you can find it anytime, any place, and in any posture. It sounds almost sacrilegious, but it really is true. You're going to go through life doing all the normal activities you do, man. Really, life is what it is, and in the middle of it all, in the middle of all this variety of sights, sounds, feelings, thoughts, and everything, there is a middle way, there is a sweet spot, there is a Tao or a way, a place that you can find rest and refuge in. So I've presented this way of not leaning this way. But once you know there's such a place as this between opposites, in this example, it's the opposite of right and left. You can find it between the opposites of too high or too low, too much or too little. And that could represent the horizontal arm of a Christian cross. So you've got this one that we've been talking about, and you have this one, and you know that in Christianity this is what they do. I don't know that they have kept that exact meaning for it, but so I'm just saying that this also is a way to practice, and so is too much to the front or too much to the back. In any opposites, you can find a place that doesn't depart outward into the world, into the complicatedness, the laboredness, the efforting, and you can return it this way to the point of ease. And if you practice having set up this kind of a scale, you'll become so familiar with the sweet spot and the wisdom of the Buddha, the knowing when not to lean, that you can literally turn this and apply it like this or this way or to the front or to the back. And so when it comes to the observing of the breath, you just follow it wherever it goes, man. And it'll, like if you were just going to sit there and use your finger to describe where the breath goes, and there's no right or wrong. I mean, it's going to be unique to you, but for me in this example, right, I'll just demonstrate it for a minute or two in this example. Right now I'm pointing to the place of ease, right? And I'm watching and following it. Sometimes, and so it literally is a location that you put your mind onto. That when you consider all the news reports, all the concerns of life, there's a place that is not over-concerned, not under-concerned. Because you don't want to be under-concerned, right? You don't want to be over-concerned, but there's just a place where things simply are as they are. You can put your mind on it. And in my experience, it literally will change. Like for some conditions, it'll be just wherever it is. But then for others, now this isn't going to match my mind at this moment, but it'll almost seem like it's looping, you know. But you do that, and then with the Buddhist tradition, you, at least the forest tradition, they have a way of putting your attention on the tip of the nose. And it's almost like there's I don't know, you want to consider it like a cosmic wormhole between this place and the sweet spot of your item of consideration. But that's a way to practice. And then just as another example that might help you when you consider a tree, like if the trunk of the tree is the place of truth, right? That is the place of truth. But then below the tree there are roots, and the roots can get really small, you know. They can be just so small they're almost like hairs. But it is fully tree, in the sense that it is not different than that place, right? So you could find almost a hair-like root any place. And if you were going to trace that root, you want to continue this, tracing it all the way up to the trunk of the tree. But for you, it's a no-brainer, because when you depart from the root too far this way, you'll know it. When you depart too far that way, you'll know it. When you depart too far up or too far down, you'll know it. But you literally will just follow that if you consider that the whole root itself is, for example, a place of ease, and that if you go out from the root this way in any direction, you enter into the rockiness or the complicatedness or the laboredness of the external world. You can, in your place of devotion, you can have your heart match the place of that root. And you can simply follow it wherever it goes. It might loop around this way. But it really is a no-brainer in the sense that when you go out from that place, having the wisdom of the Buddha, you will sense that you have leaned, that you've gone out, and you know exactly which way to move it back. So, and eventually it traces up and it leads on this river, the stream. It's a place of ease arriving to this place, but I'm just trying to say that it's a place of surety, because when you are on that place, the very instant that you start to go outward, you will feel it as increased laborness, decrease of ease. Same if you go that way too much. If you go to the front, but slightly up like that, you'll feel that you're still departing outward from the ease, so you'll know to to go down. I'm just saying that this wisdom of the Buddha, this what you get by setting up the equivalent of this Christian yoke or scale, this information literally will direct your path in life. And I think it's not just limited to one tradition or another, because all of them talk about this Tao, this whole idea of the divine feminine or the valley spirit, that there's something on one side, something on the other. And they say the valley spirit never dies. That means the spirit of the valley, and as soon as you start to depart from that, you'll sense that you're about to collide with this wall or that wall. But just the valley spirit itself, you'll know where the center is, where the sweet spot is. Or if you're taking a boat down a river, down a little river, maybe a kayak or something, one that you can control your location in the river without a whole lot of physical effort, but you can just sense when you get too close to this shore. And you know you don't want to hit this shore, right? So it's just self-evident. Gee, I wonder what direction I need to go now. Okay, you're going back this way to the center, to the sweet spot. Same if the boat starts going this way too much. It's really a no-brainer. That's how this matches the idea of taking no thought for the Mara. It's just a way of practicing. And yeah, in the Buddhist tradition, it's done with the mind and stuff. But I just find that in the what I call the mystical Christian tradition, you can actually use the frame of the human body to literally set up this kind of a scale. By gathering 2 or more points, 2 or 3, in my name, in the name of my, which is not considered different than, I mean, this is a place of devotion, this is the Holy of Holies. It's not considered different than the place of the tree trunk, the main place of devotion, even though you may just be out here on a little route, just tracing your way back. Yeah, not that that's the best example, but I'm just saying that once you find this place between right and left, you can have certainty and assurance that this is a place of refuge, and you can literally feel when you start to go outward from it. And even though I give this as a physical example, the way to use the frame, the way to establish this, take up your cross and follow me, this place of me, not myself, but the divine in your place of devotion. Even though I give this as an example, I think the Buddhist way, it's a lot easier to have a place of ease at that place in the breath that doesn't depart too much one direction or too much of another. Because you watch your breath, you can literally find the place, and you can hang out in the place of ease, wherever it may be. It's just that you need to know that that's the place that you're going for. If not, you might think, well, I don't know what you might think, but literally you're hanging out in this place of ease as you watch the breath. So I haven't found anything better, to my understanding, than the observance of the breath as recommended in like the forest tradition and stuff. And that's just with whatever background I've had, surfing without a surfboard, using the sitting bones. But I just know that this setting up a scale has really helped me to experience physically what it's like to lean, to depart outward, and that there's a place of freedom at the sweet spot that doesn't miss the mark. And just like if, in archery, when you shoot an arrow, if you miss the mark, that actual archery term is called sin, right? So if you're shooting at the bullseye and you don't hit it, it goes off to the side, they say that's a sin. But if you hit the exact center place, now watch how I do my finger, the place that's not too high or too low. It's not too much to the left or too much to the right. See how I just do a Christian cross? Then nothing has to change. And if nothing has to change, can you see that this place is sinless? In the sense that there's no reason for it to go any higher or any lower. There's no reason for it to go any more to the right or to the left. You have guidelines, you have, I don't know, vectors is the right word, you have coordinates, you have a way to be in this world that normally you would be lost, you'd probably be buffeted, and you wouldn't have your wits about you as you would like, perhaps in some conditions. But if you just try this method of being still and knowing that I am God, and I'm not talking about myself, but point to the place of your heart, it gives you a starting place, even if you're in the middle of a rough world with a lot of stuff happening. So you just sit there and you feel both sitting bones evenly. And even if it feels like there's complicatedness, but you can still come back to, am I feeling both sitting bones evenly and not leaning? And you'll hang out, you'll abide in a place that is balanced. And being balanced, can you see how you'll tend to not mismatch the world as much as you might otherwise do? And so there will be increased ease and less colliding with the world, less mismatching the demands of the world. And your place in life will be easier when you have fewer concerns. This really means a lot to me because I was following the political situation lately. And I was realizing, man, it's just a different kind of unique presentation of life. And it's possible to just forsake that and to come to the place of ease and to surf and to hold to that place and be at peace in the midst of a changing world. So I hope that helps you. Please look through the links below. I'm going to come up with a new website in which you may know that I'm on the spectrum, right? ASD, but I've been teaching Tai Chi for almost 40 years. I mean, I've been learning for over 40, including I used to teach it at UVU for the exercise science department. And so what I'm going to start doing is having Tai Chi classes for people with ASD and for everybody. But there's going to be a way that you can actually pay forward, that you can surprise a Tai Chi student by paying forward one Tai Chi lesson for them. And it's just a way of paying it forward and maybe making somebody else's life easier. I'm donating the classes to whatever degree I can, but I mean in the winter we're going to want to have a place we can practice, maybe some indoor place. I mean, being in the park doesn't always cut it. We've done that a lot in the past. So we're going to, just to make it even that I can even do that, I have to charge something. But you'll see that it's way reduced compared to what Tai Chi classes normally are. And you'll have a chance to bless somebody's life if you want to treat somebody to a class. And you can treat them to a group class or to an individual lesson, So look through that. I'll put the link below. It's probably going to be givesupport.org or some combination of... Anyway, thanks for everything. Like and subscribe and looking through all the links and trying to help our channel in whatever way you can. Much love.